call to order the Grand Island Public Schools Board of Education meeting. This is the December 14th, 2023 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance to the boardroom. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it in to us so that you may be recognized during the request to address the board part of our meeting. If you have not already completed the form, please see the staff person outside the entrance to this room. Public comment is welcome. We do ask that no signs be brought into the boardroom. Mrs. Dibbert, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McFarland.
Present.
Mr. Helinski.
Present.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Present.
Mr. Hawley.
Here.
Mrs. Wilson. Present. Mrs. Albers.
Here.
Mr. Sykes.
Here.
Mrs. Jurgens.
Present.
Ms. Maudlin.
Here.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda tonight is a consent agenda made up of items 3.1 through 3.9. This is the consent agenda as published. Would anyone like to remove any items or add any items to the consent agenda? Seeing none, does anyone have a potential conflict of interest on agenda item number 3.3? If so, please state the check number that you will be abstaining from voting on. Here's, you can give this one. Ms. Albers.
I will be abstaining from voting on check number 92284 on agenda item, is it 3.3? 3.3, I approve all other items on the consent agenda.
Thank you. At this time, I would accept a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Seconded by Mr. Hawley. Discussion? We proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Agenda item number 4.1, Superintendent's Holiday Card Contest winners. Each year, the superintendent invites all GIPS students to submit original artwork to be used for the district's holiday card. One card design is selected from a student, pre-K elementary, middle school, and high school. One card is printed and used as the district's holiday card. 2023 winners, Mr. Rouse, I guess this is your job. Excuse me, sorry.
Hello, everybody. We have one of our honored guests is just now getting here, so we're rolling in. But while we're getting ready to do all the exciting stuff, I did want to give you a little bit of background on what we're doing here today. So as Mr. McFarland shared, for the last few years, we have hosted as a district a superintendent holiday card contest. So here's a little bit of history for you. I believe by our department's count, this is year 8 for doing this program, which is really cool. Original artwork is submitted from students in the district. That's the ask. We send that invite to every school, every family, every student. And we are pleased to report that this year we received over 1,200 submissions from across the district, representing every grade. Almost every single school was represented, and Jennifer Worthington told me she's pretty certain this is the most high school submissions she has ever seen since she's been in the district as well. So huge, huge deal. The stack of 1,200 is very high. It's on my desk in my office, but that's an exciting stack to have. And then the process from there is we gather everything, we separate them out by category, elementary, middle school, high school, and then we set them out for the staff members in the Neal Administration Building to vote one day on their favorites, to kind of narrow that pile down to finalists. And then Mr. Fisher takes it from there and selects one overall winner. So what we have this evening is we have families and students represented, and from our elementary finalist, our middle school finalist, and our high school finalist. So from elementary school this year, our finalist was from Josue, a fourth grader at Seedling Mile Elementary. Did a nice picture or pencil work here of a house covered in snow with Santa flying over it and some Christmas lights. Yeah. Then our high school finalist this year came from Fremney. It's a 10th grader from Grand Island Senior High, and this is the painting that he submitted as well. And then our overall winner from middle school, who is going to be printed on the cover of the holiday card that goes out this year, is from Sabel, a 6th grader at Walnut. And we've got Santa Claus with the beloved reindeer right here. So, congrats. Yeah. So before we do any pictures and handing out frames and everything like that, do y'all have any questions on anything? All right, good deal. We're excited. It's a good time of year. Happy holidays to everybody. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and have, who we have? We've got Fremney. You want to come up? All right, good deal. So this is Fremney from Grand Island Senior High. You want to come over here?
All right, congratulations.
Right, maybe. Yes. Awesome. Thank you. And then, yes. Yep, absolutely. And then, yeah, Sabel, come on up. So this is Sabel from Walnut, our overall winner for the holiday card contest. All right, we're going to take your photo.
Together or just one individual?
One individual, and then, is that all we have? Do we have the third? No, just two? Okay, perfect. Wonderful. And then Mr. Fisher and Mr. McFarland, would you like to come around for a group photo? We'll go in the middle here. Yeah, and BB will take a photo. Yeah. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Parents, do parents get pictures if they want it?
Oh, yeah, parents, if you'd like to come up, we can get your photo in front of the, do you want to do that, or are we good? Very good. Okay, well, congratulations again to our 3 finalists and our winner for the holiday card contest.
Thank you, Mr. Roush. Beautiful artwork. Wonderful. Okay, item number 5, request to address the board. Since we have 2 individuals tonight, each person addressing the board will be allowed 5 minutes. The Board of Education has the prerogative to limit speaking to 3 minutes when there are 3 or more patrons to allow speakers an opportunity to address the board in a timely manner. If you would, please face the board, not the audience, when you speak. We want to hear what's being said, so we ask the audience to refrain from making comments or sounds that make it hard to hear the speaker. No signs are allowed in the boardroom. We will not engage in dialogue with patrons presenting to the board. The purpose of the request to address the board is to listen to patrons. The board president and superintendent will identify staff to follow up on information requested from patrons when necessary. At regular business meetings, any school district-related matter can be presented to the board, but only agenda items can be acted upon during a given meeting. At special meetings, comments will be limited to the subject of action items on the meeting's agenda. Speakers will not be permitted to make defamatory comments or use abusive or vulgar language. Expressions of personal complaints about staff or students are discouraged at public meetings. Concerns about individuals should be brought to the attention of the appropriate administrative authority. Specific building or program concerns should be brought to the attention of the building principal or program supervisor. At this time, our first speaker will be Liam Stefanini. Liam? You may have the podium.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Liam Stefanini. I am an 11th grader at Grand Island Senior High, and I am in the education pathway. I have come here tonight to talk about the pathways along with many of my peers and friends. What I think you're doing is unfair to our future generations and to the kids of the school now. Many freshmen were excited to go into the pathways that they were interested in, and now you're taking that chance away. Many of the kids in these pathways are very upset on this factor as they were in a pathway that they enjoy, and you're just going to take that away. I would rather go into the work industry knowing something about the job that I want than not knowing anything. I don't see any reason for you to take away these pathways, besides that you would want to shrink the number of the pathways in general, but I, again, don't understand why this is being taken away. And I ended up getting some insight of some of the kids in these pathways that I would like to share with you. From the counseling and mental health pathway, Natalie is a junior in high school. In the counseling pathway, she says that there is no reason for you to take away this pathway as there is no financial burden, and what we do in the classes we learn. They're very short-staffed in the mental health industry, and we need this pathway for it teaches us how to be better people and how to take care of ourselves and others. She's enjoyed meeting friends in this pathway that are like her. She says, and I quote, "This is the reason that I still go to school." She says that if you take away this, that there's nothing else as close to this pathway, and that it's not fair, and the job that she wanted in the future was to be a psychologist. I have 2 insights from the welding pathway. I have Noah, who was a sophomore. He is in the welding pathway. He told me that he was seeking out to work in the pipeline industry and stated that welding opened up a lot for him, saying that as a junior and senior, you would be able to earn college credits when at CCC. You'd get the opportunity to be an apprentice at Chase, Chef, and New Holland, and more. An 11th grader also talked to me saying, welding puts up to apprenticeships with the chief standard iron case, and they give you a taste of actually working into the field. I had a freshman message me from the law-related pathway, saying that they wanted to pursue a job in the military or going into criminal justice. They wanted to go into this pathway because they wanted to find justice in the world, but now they don't get to pursue this as they feel that you are taking the early learning of this away. I had someone from the aviation flight as well message me, which was a sophomore. They told me about their experience, saying that it was an enjoyable pathway. All of the trips that they have gotten gives them a good idea of what jobs you would be able to pursue in this field, as well as it is a hands-on experience and many fun projects to do. The person says that they wanted to be an airlines pilot. They also stated that you taking away this pathway would change everything. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get all of the pathways, as many people were at school and learning today, so I wasn't able to get all of the pathways that I wanted to, but those are the pathways that I were able to get. Though I wanted to get them all, to chat with you about everybody's learning experience in those pathways. But I think that's all I have to say.
Okay. Well, thank you, Liam.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Next up to speak, we have Natalie Houghton, I believe.
Hi, so my name is Natalie, and I think Liam already covered most of it, but I am in the counseling pathway, and so I would like to save it because a lot of people really, really like it, and it's the only reason I really go to school anymore, is because it gives me I want to accomplish the psychologist job, and it just like, that's what I've always wanted to do. So, yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. We appreciate your comments, both of you. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 6.1, GIEA request for recognition. Dr. Carrie Kohler.
Hello, everyone. I have a letter from Michelle Carter, the president of the Grand Island Education Association, and she is asking for the Board of Education to recognize the Grand Island Education Association as an exclusive bargaining agent for negotiations for the 24-25 contract year.
Thank you. Item number 6.2, Families in Transition Report. Dr. Stevens.
Good evening. This is like my first time of really presenting to you, so you were lucky you made it like 5 months without getting to see me. So good to see everybody tonight. So thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about our Families in Transitions program and our opportunity to serve our students and our families in Grand Island Public Schools. And tonight I have with me our Families in Transitions coordinator, Caitlin Morgan-Flash. She's new with us this year. And our community liaison for secondary education, Brian White. Calf, thank you. So I'm going to share just a brief set of information, and then I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin and then to Brian. So we want to thank the two of them, and myself want to thank everyone in our district. I want to thank the two of them. They've been working really hard this school year so far. This time of year, I'd like to say, is really busy, but I don't know if they'd ever say it's never busy. It's constantly busy. So they're working alongside our social workers, our school counselors, our principals, our teachers, our building support staff, the secretaries, the paraprofessionals, our food service staff, the district staff in all capacities, our folks that work in migrant and our EL programs. The list goes on. Transportation, working with our contracted services in transportation. I want to say thank you to our families and to our students that we serve, because everyone's working together to make sure that we get the job done. This year, we were fortunate to be able to be awarded from the Alpha Delta Kappa organization their Founders Day Award for the work that has been done with our previous coordinator, Holly, and also over the summer, Amy, Hannah, and Michelle Walker did a lot of work over the summer as well, and then Caitlin coming on board and Brian's work. So just want to say thank you for that. I wanted to make sure, because we do have new folks on the board, you probably know a lot about the McKinney-Vento work. That is the federal act that's related to the students. There's a lot of terms out there for students that are experiencing homelessness and unaccompanied youth. That idea around older students who potentially have left home for whatever variety of reasons, that they no longer are with a parent or a family member. So I wanted to make sure, though, that folks that are new to the board have a little bit better understanding of what could happen to a family or a student that could qualify them to be homeless. Sometimes it's called unhoused or houseless. So it is for someone who lacks fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residence, and those that could be sharing a home due to loss of housing, an economic hardship, or a reason similar, who could be living in a motel, hotel, a trailer park, or camping ground due to lack of alternate adequate accommodations, living in emergency or transitional shelters or abandoned in hospitals, and with that, living in a trailer park that doesn't have a particular constant running water, electrical kind of concept. When it first started, it said you had to have screened windows, which again, a lot of people don't have screen windows, so like there's some nuances. You have to have constant hot water, which again, that's an interesting concept. Children or youth who have a primary nighttime residence that is a public or private place that is not designed to actually live in and sleep in for human beings. Children or youth living in cars, parks, public spaces, abandoned buildings, substandard housing, bus or train stations, and migratory children qualify as homeless who live in any of those circumstances listed above. So we would say in Grand Island, Nebraska, at this time, we probably have children or youth who live in any one of those named above circumstances, and probably some that aren't named above. And that is a circumstance that we don't want to see anyone living in. And so the work of these two, along with all of our staff, is to overcome this situation. It's something that no one should experience. No one should have to ever experience it, but we know that we have children and families who do. So we have worked to ensure that through our regular registration process every year, that we do identify as many students as we can that have that are experiencing one of these or several of these kinds of situations. One of the things we've identified as our next step is to continue to work at each building level of our ongoing identification during the school year to make sure that we have a solid, strong process because once the registration happens, more students become homeless through a variety of circumstances. It just takes one thing that happens to someone for this to happen. And if it's not the regular registration process or you're not new to us on Tuesday, then we may miss you. It could take the lunch line, someone in the lunch line hearing something, the teacher in 7th period hearing something, the secretary in the office hearing something. So we want to work on our process to continue to shore that up. Additionally, Brian and Amy and Michelle were able to go to the national conference this year, and one of the things that they were able to hear about is in some instances, this is, I'm going to say, like a dream of a next step would be to also, once we have the base needs of all of our students met, to potentially look at how could we prioritize the next needs for some students. So we currently fund through Title I and also through the McKinney-Vento Act is how we do our funding, and donations. That's how we do our work right now to serve our students that meet the qualifications. Okay, so I'm going to ask to have Caitlin, our Families in Transition Coordinator, come up and talk a little bit, and then we're going to introduce Brian for him to talk about some of the work that he's doing specifically with secondary ed students.
Hi, I'm Caitlin, or Kat, the FIT coordinator here. So some of the things that we do for day to day, and right now that we have for homeless kids, we're sitting at about 239. The number typically grows every day that I come in. I'll get new referrals from the Welcome Center or from parents or from the schools. We have 69 at the high school, 50 middle school, and about 120 at the elementary level. Right now for transportation, we have 3 separate bus routes, and those are in addition to our regular bus routes. So every day I will come in and get referrals from the Welcome Center and process them, usually every single morning, and then ensure that we have them all qualified for the free and reduced lunch, and coordinating that with nutrition services. A lot of times, usually every day we have requests for backpacks, clothing, items, hygiene. This morning I have about 4 different requests, so getting that out of the warehouse, getting it ready, dropping it off, or sometimes having school staff picking it up or using school mail. And then also sometimes if we don't have the things here, which we've been really fortunate to get a lot of donations here in the community, but we can go and purchase those things like lice kits or any other like items that are needed. Okay. Also, we attend like a monthly COC meeting. It's just like a community collaboration meeting with all the different resources here in Grand Island, and it lets us know about things that are going on, and like right now the Christmas programs and what we can do for our families. we work with the Food for Thought program, which is funded by Project Hunger, and we help deliver the bags to the schools every single Friday, or like next week is a short week, so on Wednesday. 164 bags currently. Also, we have 2 pantries at Howard and Lincoln Elementary. We also plan to get additional bags from the food bank. We assist families with local resources. We've had a lot of people ask about funding and back rent and utility assistance, and right now the ERA is kind of covering a lot of that. We assist families with like donation requests. So right now we had a really nice donation from the Holiday Express over there. They gave us a really good amount, and they also are donating shoes from the Elks. So we have that going on. Sorry. Okay. We also get mattresses from Ken's Appliance. We get 10 a month, twin sets that are donated. Clothing, we've had, Kohl's, Maurice's, American Eagle donate to us. Food, the local places around here like KFC will give us food, Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks. We've had gift cards, Russ's and Hastings. Walmart has given us crayons, so we get a lot of different donations. Souls for Souls is donating 500 shoes in February. But we're definitely grateful as well. The foundation helps us and the staff, and that's pretty much on day to day what we do. So, thank you.
And one of the things that we talked with the social workers and counselors about, the high school kids here are great. A lot of them are doing different projects, service projects and whatnot for different clubs or different academies. And so one of the things, though, that we talked about with the social workers and counselors was to encourage them, if their groups were going to do, or students were doing projects around a service project, to do donations, to encourage moving forward if there are times that they can do projects for donations that are around serving our schools. Not that we don't want to help other people in the community, but finding those ways when we can do that. So we're grateful as they do, as they can, because again, it's not always appropriate. But just in this last month, we've had a project to do donations, and sometimes they do them internally in their school to better, to come back in their schools. But Stolly Park did a clothing drive that actually we're going to have kind of Brian's got some ideas around that, how to do some pop-ups for some of our students at the high school to serve some needs there, but also to clothing donations for, again, some of our students internally, and then also Engelman just finished a food drive to help support our bags for Food for Thought. So again, us helping ourselves, because I think that's really great, and it's a great way to give back to ourselves, and so we appreciate that. So now I'd like to have Brian Whitecalf come up and talk a little bit about specifically this item, but then he's going to share some additional pieces, and then we'll just entertain some questions.
This is just a collaboration between myself and Gear Up. I get a lot of professional clothing donated into the high school at the Archipelago store. And this was a better way to display and highlight and partner with students directly. And so I didn't able to count all the parent thank yous that we got, but the parents were very impressed by the offer of the professional clothing. I have 2 minutes. In May of 2023, the FIT student list was over 400 students. We were able to carry student services over into a smaller part with our summer program, I believe with ESSER dollars. A team of Michelle Walker, Dodge Elementary, Amy Hannah, Howard Elementary, Carmen, and Keely Armstrong, also within the district, and myself. We addressed food insecurity, bed assistance, and we finished the programming in July with a large free clothing garage sale giveaway. And knock on wood, there was not a garment left. We have added new faces to the team in August. The FIT team, including myself, Amy Hannah, Michelle Walker, attended the National Homeless Youth Conference in New Orleans, and there we were able to collaborate with other schools and districts, and we will have new tools for the coming 2024 school year. As of today, I've moved 2 or 3 tons of food product onto the Gish campus. which gives me a round total of 24 tons since 2017. We continue to gather more community resources, especially food and clothing. I'm highlighting the Freshman Academy leadership that has assisted with a streamlined process of helping me get families that are sleeping nightly in motor vehicles into a more safe and reliable location. Through the actions of Mrs. Gernstein, we were able to deliver on-site laundry services for 2 students who were living in a car. We were able to give them a shower and provide them with food. In many cases, Ms. Fawn Gernstein helped fold and deliver the laundry herself. She has a mini fridge in her office, and the East office staff have put a greater emphasis on food access for the weekend. I am the Garden Club faculty sponsor. This is my 2nd year. We have since moved over to Success Academy, and that group of students is wanting to focus more on food insecurity and is doing food prep and food giveaways and volunteering. Today at midterm graduation, I had a student on my fit list graduate. With the support of Dr. DeFrank and the Success Academy team, that once again, they made all the difference for the student who did not have adequate parental support. And as of today, his parent didn't even show up. I spoke with him, and he didn't think that he would ever make it to graduation. So, to all the staff and all community members that have assisted me and my team and assisted any family in transition, on behalf of every student, we thank you. Our families don't always get a chance to show their appreciation, but I'm saying thank you for all of them. Because of your investment in our students, their outcomes are dramatically improved, and the work will continue. Questions?
And I want you to know that Brian helped support I called him his troop. He had quite a troop with his young man today. So I wanted to congratulate him because he's created a fantastic environment for the students and the support he provides. So if you have any questions for us, I provided you, so you can always contact the 2 of them for sure. But any questions?
Ms. Albers.
Thanks for being here tonight. This is one of my favorite presentations, and I just appreciate you being here and getting updates. But I'm curious, when you went to your conference and you said that there might be some new rollouts in 2024, what were some of the ideas that you picked up at the conference that you would like to implement?
Albuquerque, New Mexico, a population of 800,000, I believe, serving 1,200 families. And they have about 389 students on their list, with 22 staff members allocated for those supports. They have their own warehouse, they have their own, basically, store. And families can come in just the same as the boutique, in a very dignified manner and regain their dignity or restart their lives. Space and services are at a minimal at times in some buildings because you need the access. Some of the school districts also use a tiered system, and students will stay on the list until they meet all those requirements, and then that's how they get off the list. Otherwise, they can stay on the list till the age of 21, and so that's something we'll have to do more data tracking and more staff to put them on the right tier level where they're going to be at. Chicago, also, the school district in Chicago is helping students they'll have meals delivered directly to their house to avoid transportation barriers. And that's a partnership with Uber and Uber Eats and stuff like that.
Ms. Juergens.
When you talk about the tiered system as an example, and then there are lots of other examples, when students need to engage with their school or other community supports for basic needs, it can be really embarrassing for them. So I think about, like when you say the tiered system, as an example, does the student know they're on this list? Are they engaging with people? Like, can you talk a little bit more about that? And I'm thinking more about like the integrity of the child in this instance.
All our data would show that their one-to-one person that they've adopted in the district, whoever that might be, whether it's their main teacher or another supportive staff, that person needs to get more information out of them, and so that I know exactly what they need, and then try to meet that requirement, whatever that might be. Transportation's one of the for all the districts across the country. Transportation and housing is overwhelming, but there's also some data to show that peer-to-peer, student-to-student, and I think there's some progress happening with the Hope Squad and with some of the confidant students, that students are more likely to tell each other, or parents know that another student is coming to their house all the time to eat, and I can get them access to more food, but we need to identify them, and the shame and is all part of that too.
Okay. Thank you very much. We sure appreciate what you do.
Okay. All right. What's next?
Item number 6.3, mental health supports.
Okay. All right. So the goal tonight is I wanted to be able to share a few of the potential, I'm calling them mental health supports that could be available to students, staff, and/or families. We have some mental health support funds available in the remaining ESSER $3 that we're looking at. It's been set aside, I think, probably for the duration of the grant. And as we know, those funds are going to be running out as of September 30, 2024. And one of the things that we also know about grants, right, in traditional grants, part of a goal of grants is to look at things that can be innovative with the opportunity to try things that can be impactful that could potentially take the place of things that you do with that could be more impactful than something that you currently do moving forward. Now, obviously, we're gonna have some conversations later about other things that are impacting our budget. So trying to be mindful of how we take on things that potentially could have a financial impact to the district moving forward. I also want to be cognizant of the conversations that certainly you all have had in Grand Island Public Schools well before I arrived here, the challenges that exist in not only the city of Grand Island, but across our country related to mental health and mental wellness. So I want to share some ideas. It's things that the social workers and school counselors have had conversations about in my time here, and I think actually some of these conversations had been in place prior to me coming. So I just want to share some things tonight that we've been talking about as some options as part of this ESSER $3 and what we're kind of kicking around to make you aware of some things that we're looking at and talking through. And nothing's decided necessarily. One item is decided pretty certainly, and I want to share it with you tonight. And then some of these other options that do have a financial cost are just pieces, but I want to get them out in front of you so you can take a look at them, chew them around a bit, and we'll go from there. So I think Dr. Dexter had some opportunity last year to actually engage some with the Cook Center for Human Connection. They're an organization out of Utah that actually formed several years ago. Their work actually stemmed specifically out of some suicide prevention work that they had started. And this organization, I've been involved with them now for several years myself as a school leader, and they engage with multiple states as well. But they have done work in a number of facets. The one specific piece that I know Dr. Dexter had, again, some knowledge of prior, but I have worked directly with, and they had approached us, and they've actually approached the state of Nebraska specifically with, is this item called parentguidance.org. And this is a piece specifically, it is free to anyone who wants to use it. What it is it is a set of very short licensed mental health practitioner videos, instruction, if you will, videos that can, they're on a variety of topics that parents can access from a list. They're in English, and most of them are also in Spanish, available in Spanish. And it's just a repository of resources that a school counselor, a social worker, a principal, a teacher could reference. There's some self-help ones that you and I could just reference ourselves if we wanted to access some self-care ourselves. And you can make it available just on a website to review that anyone can, at any time, can access, right? And so one of the things that we struggle with is, I'm gonna say on-demand access for a person, could be a parent, could be a patron, could be a student. It's kind of like when the need arises, because we're not always there at 2 a.m. when a parent's stressed out about something. And so this work that this organization has put together, I asked the social workers over the course of a couple months to give it some looks. They did a great job. I didn't give them much more direction than that, but they took it super seriously. They divided it up. They watched the videos, and they gave me their, impression of the videos, where they stood on it. Because again, we have great people, but again, they can't be everywhere. Could I ask them? Many of our social workers have a background in mental health, which is great, and they could sit around and try to make a lot of videos and produce them, and that'd be great, but they don't have that kind of time. And we have great people in our community, but they don't have that kind of time because we want them seeing kids when we need them referred. So I feel extremely grateful to the Cook Center for this work that they've put together, and really excited that they have this ability to support us in this way. Kearney Public Schools, you're familiar with the McKenna Ray Light Foundation probably, and the work that they've been doing over the last couple of years. They engage deeply with the Cook Center. They're probably the first one in the state of Nebraska to do the work with them. And they actually also engage with the mental health series. That's the second piece. With this presentation, just due to time, these are all hyperlinked, and you all have that, so you can actually click to those. So the parentguidance.org would be just a button, if you will, that anyone could link to, and it goes to I'm gonna call it the series library of those things that parents could access. The mental health series, what that would be is they would provide, I'm gonna call it an initial opportunity to engage, I'm gonna say the community, but it will go out to our families, and it's a free opportunity that the parents could sign up to check out an initial one. And then we could engage with them for a series of potentially 5 additional ones, 1 a month. Kearney was doing 2 a month. On their first one, they had 400 families sign up. The district gets to pick which ones you do, and those also are available in Spanish, most of those. So you get to pick which ones you do, so they can engage in Spanish or in English in those. And they pick topics that are relevant and meaningful to your community, whichever ones you'd pick. So I don't know how Kearney did it. My thinking was that you could do it with the PAC could weigh in, or you could talk to buildings about things that their parents had been talking about, the principals, social workers, counselors. If we went that route, there is a cost to that, so that's one that we could take a look at if we wanted to do that on the front end. And then again, you could do it with local people and our staff moving forward if it was successful. To do those kind of events. We have Zoom, so you could do that kind of event moving forward if that worked. The last piece is something called one-on-one parent coaching, and that is also, if you offered that, any person, literally any person, could engage with their therapists to do one-on-one coaching with the license. And it's a therapist that, like Eric, if Eric contacted them, he could engage with their therapist as part of that license. And I could do it. And Amanda could do it. There's no limit on that, and it's a license, so for the duration of that said license. So that's just something that I wanted to share. So again, no commitment on our part at this moment, but I wanted to share it with all of you. And I certainly would entertain feedback if you want to give it to me at some point. The second piece is something called Smart Gen Society. They're a nonprofit out of Omaha. I've been speaking with different building levels at this point. They shared with us our area Coalition on Trafficking shared with our school counselors and social workers. They provide a lot of different services. They have some school-based services, also in Spanish for students, for staff, just teaching different components about your online presence, all the way to actually, avoiding being trafficked online or doing things online that you shouldn't, but also, again, mental wellness and connectedness to teens online. I bet these teens would agree. Sometimes being online can be really stressful. Things happen online, right? See, they're agreeing, and how to stay well. It doesn't mean you can't be online, but it can also be stressful, and it's a lot sometimes. Also, they do a lot of parenting engagements from pre-K kinds of things that we could offer to parents of the pre-K world of how do you manage screen time? Now again, not that it is bad, but how do you do that? And just because you go to the grocery store doesn't mean you have to give them your phone in the cart, but maybe you do. But how do you deal with that? All the way to, for example, when we don't have our phones, especially somebody who has a phone as an appendage, when you don't have that anymore, it may, when you don't, you might notice things about your teen when they don't have that anymore. And so what might you do about that? So some different things there. Also, they work with legislation, digital wellness, cyberbullying, which we know happens, digital dependency, et cetera. So that's a group that we've been talking with. And one of the things I talked with Corey, but also, like I said, with the principals, how do we continue as Grand Island Public Schools to engage families long-term in this regularly providing parents with this kind of stuff, all kinds of things, the parent piece that we want to engage them in. And then the last item is something called Care Solace. It's something that I did share also with social workers and counselors a long time when I first came in. They don't currently have any schools in the state of Nebraska. Again, just like all things, it's a piece, I'm going to call them a third-party support tool that works to help bridge the gap between, I'm going to say, in some instances, our staff and families getting the work done to provide mental health supports. So sometimes we have a family has told us that they are seeking mental health supports for their student. And we will, we have counselors or social workers or principals who will try to help them be calling different providers. And sometimes that can be hours on the phone. And our people are not experts about insurance or lack thereof. They're not also experts necessarily in psychiatry or other mental health support sometimes. Sometimes we've given them all the tools we can give them, and the parents never call, and the student lingers and still needs that support. And we help them fill the paperwork out, and they still never submit it because it's overwhelming. This is a organization that actually works directly with the families, and I'm going to say stays on them and stays with them and actually does all of the work for them, with them, and navigates all of the world of insurance and that sort of thing. And I will tell you that it can be with the school or it can be separate of the school and directly with the family, and families can actually reach out directly to them. And so again, it's nationwide, and staff can use it. People in the community could end up using it, but it actually can cut down the time of getting into providers in half, which again, some of that has been the issue. In our area, if you reach to the Omaha metro area, mileage-wise, there are at least 1,000 providers that could be accessed. So our area to the Kearney to the Omaha area. And so it's a tool that actually they support a warm handoff. So it goes from a contact to engaging to helping with the getting figuring out what you need, to getting the appointment, to following up if you went to the appointment, to following up if you had additional care, to if the school did the warm handoff from you as the school with the family to Care Solace. There's a dashboard to help you track if they actually got the care or not. And so it's something, again, there's a cost to it. I wouldn't say it's cheap, but my experience with it is it saves so much time that the people then in school can actually be with the student and ensuring that they're caring for the child in school and not doing this kind of stuff. That these people are really helping the families get the work done and taking the burden off of them and the stress. Because again, if any of you, as a parent of a child who has had to seek care, it can take a lot of time. And I had enough skills and enough knowledge of insurance and those pieces that I could get it done. So for our families that's a struggle, especially our families that may not have insurance or have other concerns about wanting to engage in the process of having to be out there, putting themselves out there. They work with families and they can connect in a number of languages for our families that have those concerns. And they can connect, again, on a number of fronts culturally as well. Again, the concerns people would want to engage with, again, around cultural concerns and issues as well. So I'm just putting that out there. Again, there are some costs. So we can deal with it now, but the future piece, we'd have to consider additional grants because we're not going to have the general budget to do it. So I wanted to put those on your radar so you could look into them. These all have links in the presentation, but I wanted you to have it. Okay. Any questions related to these?
Mr. Sykes.
Yeah, I was curious about, I may have missed it when you were presenting the Smart Gen Society. What were the costs associated with that one? I may have missed that.
Okay, so the Smart Gen Society, there's probably like a variety of costs related to that. So I don't have a specific, they have different kinds of opportunities. They could have a keynote, they could have come in and do a series of classroom things, they could do 5-parent small meetings. So I don't have a specific cost. What we are looking at, so with the Area Coalition on Trafficking, they raise funds through community foundations. So initially, I know that Peace Lutheran Church is actually having them in January. So I was looking to maybe piggyback some with maybe what they're doing for the community, that we may try to engage them in some small way with some of our ESSER funds for that. But then I want to engage and get the coalition. I want to try to get them to pay for anything additional like moving forward. So I don't have a specific cost on them. I do have some costs on the other two items though, the other two organizations. But I can definitely find out on a specific item, but theirs would be more of a, what do you want? And then I could price it out.
Mr. Garcia Mendez.
Thank you. So I'm on the Grand Island Area Coalition on Trafficking Leadership Team, and yeah.
Perfect, so you can get me
I'm
some
actually their treasurer, so
Oh,
funny.
good.
Yeah.
Super. And
You're
what we-
like, yeah, let's
that's
get
awesome.
pen to paper. No, we are collaborating with you guys, which it brings me to the point of like, as you kind of progress into looking at these, just think about that community collaborative piece of like how maybe what kind of agencies out there, whether they're nonprofits or even just the public schools, what kind of grants we can submit. And I'm sure you already have your your brain wrapped around that, but just really encouraging that collaborative piece because sometimes people in our community get isolated and think that only they have the solution, but it's more of a collaborative piece of braiding funds and just really making the most out of few funds that we have. Gotta love grants. So for the Care Solace, it sounds really interesting. Do you have any examples of like other public schools that have taken it on?
My own that I came from.
Yeah. and I guess I'd be interested to see more of it, like in terms of our demographics, but also our school size and our city size, just if there's any maybe references that you can check.
I do.
With
I
Care
actually,
Solis.
I have some.
So
And
you're
I,
already,
yeah,
yeah,
I
on the
got
ball.
some for, she tried to provide me, Janine is the woman's name who's like one of the leads. So I asked her for that very thing, demographics and size. So it might not be the same demographics, but might be similar size and vice versa. Might be smaller, bigger, but similar demographic. So I have that and I'll get that provided. But I would give you a personal story. So I was the first district outside of Las Vegas. So Clark County School District, right? 5th largest in the nation. So clearly not exactly the same. But Clark County in Nevada engaged first with Care Solis. And then I was the second in Nevada to engage with them. In our first 30 days, we had 77 engagements. In our first 30 days of putting it out there. Of the 77 engagements, 32 were adults that were seeking help. Out of those 77, 15 were warm handoffs from school. So the rest of those 77 came from our link from our website. So of course we marketed it, if you will, like we communicated with families, we had it in the newspaper, we communicated it in various ways, but it was from a link on our website that just people in the community, they were probably parents potentially, but they could have been community members, accessed it. And when you access it, it actually asks you like, what do you need help with? I'm cutting myself, I think I have an eating disorder, I'm taking something. I want to hurt myself. So, we have 988, right? We have that, but so does everybody. I mean, that's a nationwide number. And they can also help you, but they're not going to like call the provider for you and say, what insurance do you have? And then call the place and help you fill out the form and make sure that they take Medicaid, right? Like they're not going to do all the work. They're going to help connect, like help you find people, but they don't keep working with you. So, but then they do the dashboard. And so then in the system, right, if we do the warm handoffs, you can see in the dashboard, the people you give access to can then see in the dashboard, like, yes, and Summer has an appointment on Tuesday. Summer missed the appointment on Tuesday. You might want to check in with Summer. She's supposed to have had that appointment on Tuesday. And then they like check back in with the parent, like, can I help you reschedule that? Let's get that rescheduled. Like, and they kind of like stay on the person. Because again, I can tell you here, like we have a number of kiddos who like the thing keeps being like they just didn't get the appointment yet. I can't get the appointment. It's 7 weeks out, it's 4 months out. And it's their ways, right? Like they're in the mix of, they know what to say. They know how to talk to people at those places and get in. They also can help get teletherapy, which is great. So like those are the examples, but I have some additional stuff and again, I'm gonna call it the references that I can provide.
Ms. Halpers.
So as you do a little deeper dive into all of these, do you foresee that you'll be bringing this to F&F to talk about funds, or will you
I'm going to say it's a pretty low cost, so I wasn't necessarily envisioning that it would necessarily come to you. When I say low, it's under a threshold that you wouldn't necessarily be approving.
Okay. What about, I think there's probably many of us that are just kind of interested in the particulars of all of these different services, and it would be nice for maybe a small group of the board on the committee, L4L, or whatever group you might deem most appropriate, just to hear a little bit more about these, because since it is such an enormous need in general, but particularly within our own district, I know I'm very interested in knowing a little bit more, just as whatever would be appropriate. And then in addition to these, what's going on with Hope Squad? Because that's something that we first heard about a year ago, and I'm just kind of curious about an update on that.
So we talked about that, and I'll follow up with Dr. Dexter on a specific time that they could provide that for the board.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Stevens.
It's me again.
And you're up. 6.4, calendar adoption.
Okay, here we go. Last one. Sorry, I talk a lot, I apologize. Okay, so I'm gonna pop the calendar up here. You all have the calendar and the PowerPoint, so I'm gonna start with this up, and I'm gonna put the PowerPoint up, and if you wanna keep this up on your own screens while I put up the little slides, okay? So first off, I want to say thanks to anyone of the board who attended any of the sessions. We had 3 sessions this year, so I want to say thank you. And also I want to say thank you. Some of you were in the audience who attended our meetings. I want to say thanks to Dr. Dexter for helping me get acclimated to the process of the calendar and the way that it goes here in Grand Island. So appreciate that. And also to Dr. Palmer, because she also helped me a great deal. So you will note, those of you that have been on the board prior to this year, in the past you did have an info meeting and then you had another one where you voted on it. We didn't make significant changes, and so I did talk to Mr. Fisher and I said, we're gonna bring it once and vote on it. So that's what we're doing. And if anything arises, we'll discuss it. But we're going to go for it tonight. So we had, again, we had membership from all the buildings and special education, L4L, and GIEA. We met 3 times in October and twice in November, a total of 3. This calendar provides 167 days, which is actually a half a day more than this year, and 1 less early out day, which early out days really is only like an hour, and an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half for the schools. So I just felt like that was important to know. We're not losing any time. There are 187 days for teachers. Now there are some changes in terms of like plan and prep and whatnot, and we'll discuss that. The quarters are approximately listed there. For quarter 1, it's approximately October 18th. Quarter 2 is approximately December 20th. Quarter 3, March 7th. Quarter 4, May 22nd. That does give quarter 4 approximately 10 weeks, but as we know, in the spring, by the time you have graduation and then all this stuff happens, 10 weeks is really like 9 weeks and all the testing. So it'll balance itself out. And especially with the 83 and 84 days, that's pretty balanced. So I wanted to share, the start times at this point are the same as they've been. And I apologize. I don't know why elementary says 8:05 to 3. It's 8 to 3:05. So I apologize why it says that. Middle school 8:15 to 3:45 and high school 8:05 to 3:30. The amount of hours are listed there so that you have that. Again, that accounts for that 0.5 more days and 1 more hour at elementary with that less early out situation, and then the extra hour at high school and the extra bit of time, hour and a half at middle school. So I just wanted to make sure you understood we are fulfilling our Rule 10 requirement for time. If anything would happen with school start times, we definitely would let you know. So those are the details, but when you look at the calendar, I do want to talk about some important notes, and then I'll pull the calendar back up so we can talk specifics. So we are making an adjustment, and it is based specifically on trying to meet the needs of our staff related to professional development on the PD days. So we really try, L4L has done a great job taking stock of what people feel is helping them or not helping them when we do professional development. They survey people, they talk to them, they find out what works and what doesn't work. And one of the things we know is when you drink from a fire hose on a PD day, like you get stuff all day long and then we send you home and you don't get a chance to actually do anything with it, sometimes you don't do anything with it. So that was the feedback we got. So we said, how do we fix that, right? And so thankfully to Dr. Berman and also just everyone in L4L, right? Dr. Berman was also on the calendar committee, but Dr. Palmer and Dr. Dexter and the team there said, what do we do to fix that? In addition, as you maybe note from this year's calendar, we have this is a district day, and this is a building day, and this is a this day, and there's a lot of days, kinds of days. So we said, what if, kind of like most of the days, were some district stuff and some building stuff, and then time to collaborate. And people, I think, felt really good about that. People at the meeting specifically were like, yeah, that makes sense. It was a great presentation about it, and it made sense to people. So what you'll note if you look at the calendar is when we come back to school, there are some dedicated there's a building day. That's when they do the meeting and they talk about like things that are like how they're gonna get started, and they build their camaraderie and their planning and what needs to take place, and they probably do their safety things about their building. And then we have that day too that is the time that we do our collective district stuff. And then they go back to their buildings. And then we have a day where we have some district PD, and then they're gonna go collaborate about it. We're gonna do some district stuff and they're gonna collaborate about it. And they're gonna do their planning time. And then we start school. Okay, we're gonna continue with the method we've had where our kids at the beginning, meaning kindergarten, 6th and 9th, are gonna come to school and get ready at their respective building levels to engage. Then everyone comes in. So that's what that looks like. So I just wanted to talk about that. And then you're going to see those district building collaborative times. So you'll see that throughout the calendar. So that's that change. Instead of those summer districts, summer building, summer district. So we've moved away from that, okay? Also a change, this year we had professional development the Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving. We talked a lot about that, and we said, we think it's important to be there learning. So we have added those back as learning days. Another item that is changed is in respect to where the plan and prep day is for the end of second trimester for elementary. So as you'll note in first trimester, the trimester ends and then the plan and prep day to work on the grades and whatnot is right after that. When you go into the second semester in February for the end of the second trimester, we have parent-teacher conferences, and then the trimester ends the next week, and then the plan and prep day isn't until the following week. There's a number of things we talked about. So we had the teacher conference week. We tried to keep them the same weeks that they already were. We have some activities that have already been planned and scheduled for with officials and different things. And we try to keep it exactly because those get planned for like 2 years in a row. That way we also don't lose staff out to those activities so they can be at conferences. It also aligns with when like our assessment schedule is so that teachers get to see parents to discuss those assessments and things like that. So parents will have just talked to staff about how their students at elementary are doing. And then the trimester ends. So we felt like it was okay that they don't get the report card till the next week. Like we felt okay about that. Okay. Spring break. There's lots of discussion about that. We have proposed to move it back 1 week. So that's the change. That if you have any concerns, you can discuss that. And then again, I talked about that PD model. And one of the things that you will note, again, the calendar that gets produced by Mitch and team for the families won't have that on there, this part on there. But you will note, especially since we're gonna have some, leadership at the high school that will be different. We're gonna work with that whole team, and they might need some different things for PD and whatnot. We'll work with that. But in February, the plan and prep day is the 28th. And then in May, we have a day, May 2nd, on the calendar that is PD. For secondary, that might be flipped. February might be PD, and their plan and prep day will probably be May 2nd. Especially for the high school, it might be so that they can get everybody ready for graduation. Staff can collaborate, make sure they got all the kiddos checked out, and who needs to still power through, and who do we need to help, and those type of things. But that also really helps L4L because, as you know, we keep shrinking that team down that we can get district staff out and about better. Because when we have PD all in the same day, people are stretched super thin and we can't help everybody. So this, if we do some alternating on who has PD where, that will help us. So we just want to create some flexibility for the team. Okay, so I'm gonna quick jump back actually to the calendar. So I want to make sure I don't miss any other items there might be questions about. So with that, I would entertain any additional questions people might have as you look. But I was proud of the team, and I felt like everybody left in a good space, and we tried really hard to honor everybody's. We collected feedback from every school if they wanted to provide it, from the folks on the team. So, would
Ms.
entertain
Jurgens.
questions.
Dr. Stevens, I'm wondering if maybe you're calling L4L something different than what I call L4L. Do you mean the committee meeting?
No, the department L4L team.
Got it. Because our committee just doesn't even meet anymore. So this is the first time, and I was like, has this been happening? And I haven't been getting the meeting invite. So thank you so much.
Apologies. The actual department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Albers.
So I've been on the calendar committee a couple of years, and I usually stay quiet, but I just like to listen. But what is the deal with spring break? Because I know that in years, don't groan, but I know that we tried moving it, and Dr. Dexter, you might want to chime in here. We tried moving it one year, and it was anarchy, and then there's something with NSAA, and then we couldn't move it, and Mr. Ladwig was in the meeting I was in, the first meeting, and he was like, no, we can move it this year because the weeks
It has
switch for
something
NSAA.
to do with the NSAA calendar or something.
Yeah. So do you foresee like next year it's gonna have to go back, or you're like, I don't know.
And Dr. Dexter may have a term. He called this a reset year on
Yeah,
he called it a reset year on their calendar, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't know what that meant either. So anyway, I guess we'll to be.
I did suggest. I said we could just eliminate it, but then that got more groans. But okay.
Mr. Fisher, do you want to speak?
Just to interject on that reset year, basically with the NSAA calendar, every year things move a day or two. And so eventually where the NSAA calendar is at has moved far enough forward that now they reset it and move everything back a week and start over. And, again, it keeps progressing as, so about every, 6-7 years or so, have to go through a reset.
Like it gets later and later, so they gotta like start it back earlier. Okay.
Yep. That's what it is.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Dr. Stevens. Okay. Item number 6.5, GIPS WAN Transport E-rate RFP. Mr. Corey Gearhart.
Good evening. Got a couple of items to cover. The first one here is probably the bigger of the two. We've had our current WAN provider for the last 10 years. So it's time to go through a rebidding process for the E-rate program, and I mention that word or that term a lot. Essentially, that's a federal program that helps reimburse schools and libraries for their internet connectivity costs as well as some of their hardware to maintain their networks. The benefit to Grand Island Public Schools is any amount of money that we spend to purchase network connectivity, the E-rate program will reimburse us a certain percentage. In the past, historically, that's been 80%, so 80 cents on the dollar that we spend, they send back to us. This year, because of changes in our free and reduced lunch status, we actually went to 90%, so we'll get a 90% reimbursement. So that does play into this. I was going to make the comment that I only have had 3 50-page RFP proposals to cover tonight, so I think it's important we cover every single page in detail, of course. Yeah, I didn't bring snacks, so I better skip that. what's included in the attachment here is just the summary from those three proposals. The current vendor is Unite Private Networks, and that's the company we've been using actually for 14 years, but in the current capacity with all schools for the last 10. They came in with two different proposals, and rather than bore you with the technical details about how the networks are engineered and designed, essentially, I'm comfortable with either of the top two proposals from Allo Communications or from Unite Private Networks as far as network resiliency. If fiber gets cut in this neighborhood, it doesn't take our schools down, et cetera. You know, they both had that redundancy built in. But you'll notice that one of them is less expensive, and so, of course, in the name of stewardship for the organization and the past experience with the company, I'd say we go ahead and move forward with the proposal from Unite Private Networks. One thing to note about this, we currently spend approximately $250,000 a year, and then we get a certain amount of that reimbursed. This is gonna actually cut our costs in half, and then going from 80 to 90%, we'll cut it in half again. So we're gonna be about a quarter of what we were spending last time for network connectivity. And currently today, the remote sites connect to us here, we connect out to the internet. In this new way, the remote sites will have two different ways to connect to us. So if that line gets cut, it just goes the other way. When we connect to College Park or to Network Nebraska, today we have one connection. That line gets cut, we go down. Now we'll have two paths out there. So highly unlikely that we're gonna have that kind of downtime. And of course, with the productivity loss and the cost to run the district for a day, that's very important. So the two options from Unite, one is pay a little bit up front, and I'm encouraging us to go that route, because if we pay that now, we get the 90% this year, and that may not be 90% next year. That's the way E-rate works. So that's the highest I've ever seen it. So I'd advise us to use those dollars to pay those one-time fees up front. They're also charging us about 11% interest if we wanted to go ahead and finance that through a monthly recurring charge over the 5 years. So having said that, I've been warning the F&F team about this and the rest of the board. I didn't get a chance, but because of the nature of the way E-rate works, it is kind of a time is of the essence situation. And so tonight, this is both information and action, because I need to start filling out paperwork that then has to go through a bunch of red tape to get approved. And then once it's approved, they can start construction. So there are a couple of areas of town and a couple of railroad crossings that they're gonna have to get across, which takes quite a bit of effort to get done, just because of the nature of the bureaucracy up and down to get the approvals and such. So for that reason, I'll answer any questions you might have, but I'll be back here shortly to ask for an approval on going with Unite Private Networks for the upfront payment proposal. Any questions? All right, very good.
Item 6.6, District Multi-Year Microsoft Licensing Purchase.
The only thing that IT people like less than dealing with printers is dealing with Microsoft licensing. And so, sorry, I hope nobody works for the printing company. We've currently been using a site license for Microsoft Office because of our adoption of the Google Productivity Suite. There's a number of reasons why we don't necessarily need Microsoft Office on every single computer in the district. And so by changing our strategy slightly and buying some perpetual licensing instead of paying an annual subscription fee to be able to put that on the computers that we need to put it on, long story short, we're going to cut our cost over the next 6 years by 55%. So by, again, purchasing some things up front, using some dollars that I've been able to put in the depreciation fund because of some federal dollars offsetting general fund expenses last year, we have this money here available to help us make this purchase. And this will cover us for 6 years of actually both Windows upgrades and Microsoft Office. Now, for the labs, the reason we still have individual licenses there, we're still going to put Office on the labs, we're still going to put Office on the folks in the district who need it. And we have full compatibility with the Office products in the Google Suite as well. So I don't foresee any major hiccups going this route. So. Any other questions related to that? And I'll be back with that next month to get an approval. You find it as exciting as I do, I see.
Thank
All right.
you, Mr. Guerrero.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work. Okay, item 6.7, AQuest presentation, Dr. Dahl.
Good evening, Board of Education. I'm joined here with Jeff Gilbertson and also Matt Wickman. And we're going to do two things. We're going to talk really about progress and supports. Their focus is going to be on graduation and on-time indicators that the high school uses to track how they support students. And my part of the presentation is also going to focus on the state accountability results that were delivered to the state. We've already publicized some of those when it was made public. So we'll just go over those results and celebrate what we can celebrate and just talk about, if there's an area that we need to continue working on.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Dahl. It's my pleasure to be here tonight, and happy holidays, everybody. Before I start, I just want to voice my pleasure seeing our 7 students here, Grand Island Senior High students. I really admire their passion, advocacy, and their voice, and I'm so grateful they had the opportunity two of them, to take the podium tonight to speak to you. So with that, like Dr. Dahl mentioned, Mr. Wickman and I will talk about the graduation rate at Grand Island Senior High, and we've learned a few things in a year and a half. We'd like to share that with you tonight, and I'm actually starting with kind of the celebration, if you will. Mr. Wickman's going to back me up on some lessons we've learned about the data. So one thing that we have done is we have.
Do you want to go to that report?
Yeah, you want to go to that? Sure. Thank you.
Oops.
Switching screens here. Okay, very good. One thing that we have done at Grand Island Senior High, we've intensely focused on this concept called Freshman on Track, and I want to briefly explain that to you. It's really a alignment, if you will, with the University of Chicago Public Schools consortium. It was a study that's 10 plus years old, but what they have found in studying the Freshman on Track concept is that freshmen who pass their core classes at the completion of their freshman year are four times more likely to graduate from high school than their peers that are off track. And so we've really aligned ourselves with that concept, and with that, the MTSS, the multi-tiered system support, has kicked in. The Freshman Exploration Academy teams and islands have worked relentlessly to ensure that those students are on track. If we can go back to the original screen, we have a simple pie chart there that is actually real-time data demonstrating the evidence today. We have almost 91% of our freshmen are on track here towards the end of first semester, and so we celebrate that. But our job is not done. It's not time to put your feet up and become complacent. We have to work hard to sustain and keep those freshmen on track based on that aligned work and study with Chicago Public Schools. We know if we do that, those freshmen, when they leave the ninth grade, they are 4 times more likely to graduate from high school. And so we'll segue to Mr. Wickman. Keep that mindset on track, because it becomes important, obviously, in the upper grades. Mr. Wickman.
Thanks, Mr. Gilbertson. So as you saw the freshman pie chart, this next set of pie charts is really our senior class. So where are our seniors at today? Are they on track towards graduation? One kind of quick note about who our senior class is. We think oftentimes when we talk about seniors at Grand Island Senior High, it's the kids that walk in the door every day. So for that, we have 529 total students. However, when Dr. Dahl starts talking about our AQuest scores here in a little while, our cohort is actually 673 kids. So we see 529 kids day in and day out, but when the state factors our graduation rate, it's out of 673. So there's each one of the charts which represents each one of the academies. The other, that's OMB's Skills Academy, CBI, a variety of other students in our building. Some of our newcomer students fit in that group of students there. But you see the academies are doing a really good job of getting students on track. Then you have the two tables on the right-hand side. So on track this year, you'll see it's 83.36 for the entire cohort. So when you look at that 673 number, roughly 84% of our students are on track towards graduation. That's an uptick from when I did a similar presentation of this in March. That was hovering around 78 or so percent. So with this current class, we're looking at a bit of an improvement. When you look at the combined GIPS academies, so just you take that other group out of that, and you're looking at just AMS, AET, ABC, etc., your academies are showing closer to 90% of kids on track. And that's an uptick from last year as well. So when we looked at March and we pulled similar data, we're seeing more kids on track today than what we saw then. All right. So this next slide has two pieces of information that kind of explains our cohort a little bit. The slide on the left, and you might have seen this from Dr. Levos at some point, but it shows the number of students last year, and this was through March of last year, that went through the Welcome Center. The slide on the right shows that the kids that came to Grand Island Senior High into the newcomers program through the Welcome Center. So when you look at that, you see 2021, that's a low number of about 46 students or so. That's this current graduating cohort. So think about COVID, the time and world that we were in at that time, fewer kids were coming in. Our practice at this time was to put all of our newcomer students into ninth grade. So if they were 17 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old, even 20-year-old students, their cohort was graded as ninth grade. So when you think about that cohort number that I talked about a little bit ago, 529 students show up to the building, but it's a 600 plus student cohort. Well, we had 20-year-olds that only had a few months to stay in school that we listed as ninth graders back then. Okay, so the interesting data point from this, and again, this slide really is representative of back in March when we started kind of sharing these presentations. You'll notice that the majority of the kids are really 16 to 20 that enrolled. So when you look at that number of 144 in that right-hand column, it's 16 to 20-year-olds that were primarily enrolling. All of those kids, 158 of them, were classified as freshmen this last year. So when you think about the class of 2027, 158 of those kids were newcomers, and more than what do we got, about 80 of them were 17 and older. So in the class of 2027, we look at our cohort. Okay, so we got to continue to look at that. When we look at our newcomers now, this is where we're at for the year. So these are numbers from just last week or so. We have 96 newcomer students that have started since August or so. Well, I guess that's back to May. But we continue to see steep inclines. Now, I will tell you that we've made two changes based on this data. One, we entered kids' grade level based on their age now. That's really a benefit for kids because kids were really frustrated when they came in at 17, 18 years old and their grade said ninth grade. It was kind of a frustrating experience for them. It will change the cohort they're aligned to. So that'll kind of balance out a little bit, but when you look at where we're at with our current 9th grade class, it hasn't seen the same growth that our current 10th grade class is. So our current 10th grade has an enrollment just over 700, about 725. And that's mostly kids that are much older than just 10th graders, or at least about 150 of them. So we continue to look at this and how it impacts our graduation rates, and we find that our students are, what we missed along the way and what people need to really understand is 529 kids walk into Grand Island Senior High, and right now, today, the vast majority of those kids are on track to graduate. And we saw last year the number, when we pulled the number in March, around 79%. It finished in May closer to 84%. So if we have the same kind of percentage growth, we will find that we'll go from right now around 83 to hopefully closer to 88. But that's of the kids we see every day. So we have to continue to chase down and find out how to support that. And our newcomer programs and the amazing work from Dr. Levos has really helped change those experiences for kids. So really excited about what we're doing. Changing the way we enroll kids is helping, and those things we'll start seeing some changes maybe in some of our school-based data.
Thank you very much. So as we're thinking about the support that the high school is providing for our newcomer students, really we can ratchet this back to those same supports at the elementary and middle school levels, because a lot of those families have those students have younger siblings. So I want to segue our presentation towards assessment data and towards the state's accountability for schools, and give you, as a Board of Education, a slight description of just what some of this means, because I don't think we had the privilege of that a few years ago. We sort of had a pandemic blip of time where we didn't spend as much time focusing on this because the pandemic took our attention. Excuse me. So to begin with, AQuest is a system that means a quality education system for today and tomorrow. That's an acronym. You hear people say AQuest, AQuest. I just thought it's good to know what it actually means. The state wants to maintain a quality education system by really looking at how our test scores do, but also by looking at a number of other areas. I mentioned here that there's 6 tenets of the AQuest system. I could name them all. We're going to talk about 3 of them tonight, because 3 of them they currently measure. The other 3, well, they hope to measure. And just so you know, the AQuest report is on the website, a full page that you can look at each year when you go to the NEP website, which is publicly accessible. To school district admin, it's a 7-page report for each school, or a bigger report for us. So AQuest first gives 2 different levels of description. One is a state level, where it tells if a school is excellent, great, good, or needs support to improve. And that comes solely on the English language arts and math scores combined. What is the percent of students that are proficient? So that'll help a school fall into whatever level based on that. Next, there's from the federal, because this accountability system is state and federal, the federal wants to look at additional areas, not just how did, quote, all the students do, but how did every ethnicity do, one by one? How did students of also special populations, such as our English language learners, such as students with IEPs, and students with free and reduced lunch? So TSI and ATSI are 2 different, I'll call them warning levels. If TSI is labeled, that means you're lower than the lowest 25% of students in the state in that specific ethnicity or special group. ATSI means you're lower than the lowest 5%. In other words, if we found those students statewide, you're beneath that. Lastly, CSI is not an identification of students, it's rather a school identification, that if you don't address ATSI across a number of years, the school will move to CSI. And just to say, we have a new school that has identified CSI this year, Lincoln Elementary School. I'll talk about that in a second, but Westlawn and Walnut Middle School are also CSI schools. It means that the state comes and provides extra support, and that comes through federal dollars. But ultimately, those supports are to help the school identify a turnaround plan and then walk through the process of turnaround. And just to say, at Lincoln Elementary, I'll mention later in this report, they have a specific area of supporting students who have IEPs. And the state is laser focused on how do those students do on assessments. And so the school's working on that. That's their area that they need to work on support. So just to mention, so that we're not confused, if a school is CSI, they still could have an overall rating of needs support or good or great. In other words, and I'm just going to say it, the average level of every student's performance could be above a certain threshold. It's just that the federal government, is looking at every student group separately and asking how did they perform. So with that, great news. Every one of our schools improved in proficiency in ELA and in math. And next, if you look at this bunch of bubbles, I don't know what else to call it. I couldn't think of what else to make other than bubbles. But if you look at this, it shows a year ago, in other words, 14 months ago when we took AQuest, the NSCAS assessments, we had 2 yellow, which are great schools. We had a number of good schools and a large number of need support schools. That's what happened 14 months ago. And now you can notice that our great schools doubled. Our good schools maybe went up in the area of 30-some%, and our needs support to improve schools went down by 60%. So we really have flexed in the right direction. And I want to say we're, as a district, returning to pre-pandemic performance, which is what we want to see, because the year before the pandemic wasn't the mark of excellence anywhere, but it's something that we want to get back to and then continue on the road of improvement. This is, of course, a slide deck that you can access, so this might be a hard thing to see or look at, but I just want to emphasize every single blue line, which is 14 months ago, is lower than every red line, which is just last spring's results. So every school made improvement, and then you notice those horizontal kind of crossbars. If I look at any of the 4 schools that are above that purple line, I don't know if my pointer will work. I'm pointing to the wall just to say that's where it is. Pardon me for using the wall. But that top line is the difference between good schools and great schools. So the 4 schools that are above that line have great status this year, and then underneath, the ones that are in that kind of middle area are good schools, and then we still have a couple of schools that are need support. So with that, again, this is something that I just want to make available to you. A lot of information here, and I don't want to spend time dwelling on it, but I want to just highlight some things. First, on the right are areas that schools got released from. That's huge good news. So if I could just use Bar Middle School as an example, they got released from, sorry, it's a little bit blurry, you're not standing close enough, special education, multi-racial students, and Hispanic students. All 3 of those different groups had been scoring in the ATSI lower than the lowest 5% in the state, and they've improved that. So the state's removed that from that school. And that's huge good news, and you can look at Lincoln, made one area of improvement, and also Star and the other ones. So we want all of our schools to address and to conquer the land of ATSI. It's going to take consistent work and support, as I was saying before. So I mention that because the area on top where it says ATSI student groups, kind of there on the bottom, those are the groups that each school has now been identified that they need to work in and support. So anytime that we're district office folks are visiting schools to help support schools, we want to ask them, what are you doing here? How can we help? All right. So I'm going to just celebrate the good news, but I want to give you a second to understand me. So not me as a presenter, but rather the way I'll present right now. So anything that you see is purple, wear purple, be gold, that's a great thing. Anytime you see pink, and my apologies for anyone who likes to color pink, pink is going to show something that's negative. You notice that pink arrow is increasing, but sometimes something increasing is bad, right? We don't want chronic absence to go up, for example. So anytime we see purple, we're going to be excited. Anytime we see pink, we're going to say, oh, we have an area that we need to continue to support. And that last, the one that looks like waves, means that something didn't really change. So as a district, we're good. That means all of our assessments in grades 3 through 8 and 11 added together stay in the good range, kind of that middle area. Next, our proficiency, if you look at the average proficiency comparing year to year, we went up 10%. So 10% more of our students are proficient. That's great. That's a huge improvement. And where that improvement occurred, a lot of it occurred in middle schools to celebrate that work. But all 3 of our school levels made improvement. So again, Everything's a process. We want to celebrate those improvements, but then it can continue our support where it's needed. And one last thing I would mention, the high school is only given one shot for their number. In other words, it's a different cohort every year. So the high school is graded on a culmination of their supports across years when the ACT is taken, but the other schools are grading students across multiple years. So just to mention some supports we have, all of our other presenters at different times from the L4L team could talk about professional learning communities that our teachers are engaged in. The reading bill has that we make what are called IRIPs, or intervention plans for students. The pre-ACT for 10th graders is practice on the pre-ACT. Those are examples of things that we do as support. Next, the state wants everyone to participate when there's a test. And we're hitting it out of the park at 98.9%. We even went up from last time, so purple arrow. And we could look at where test participation is to see which areas are the strongest. Almost 100% at the middle school level, almost 100%. But again, where we need to improve in testing performance really is something that each school can identify, or in other words, even each academy for that matter at the high school level. All right, next, my colleagues greatly explained the impact of our EL students and the program changes that we need to provide for them. At the same time, I just want to mention that if we look at ELs district-wide, they're not graded on how they did on the ACT only, they're graded on how they do on the ELPA exam, and that's sort of segmented so that they make improvement from like emerging low to emerging high, from emerging high to progressing low, and so on and so forth. And so we made an improvement that just over just over a third of our students who are ELs are making those improvements on an annual basis. We want to keep improving it. At the same time, we want to celebrate the improvement that we have. Next, chronic absence. So just as a definition, chronic absent means students that have missed more than 10% of their school days. It's something that we measure at the end of the year, but we can also measure it all year long based on the days that a student's currently attended. And so currently we have almost 25% of students who met the target. In other words, they're not chronic. And that's decreasing, which is a good thing, which means that more students are attending. Huge benefit to all of the academics in every one of our schools. Next, the graduation rate, as we talked about before. There's one thing I want to say about bouncing back to pre-pandemic performance, and it's that the graduation rate is the final thing. In other words, all of our supports to students that raise proficiency in all of our grades, the last thing it reaches is graduation rate. So what we've seen is a decrease in graduation rate from the 2020-2021 year to the 2021-22 year. You might be saying, wait a minute, isn't that a year old? And the answer is yes, it is a year old. AQuest doesn't look at last spring's graduation because those numbers don't get finalized until sometime this month. Last month, there's a moment where NDE puts out the final report because students are getting GEDs during the summer, and those count for us, count in favor of us. At the last check, I think we were in the 82% graduation rate for our students last spring. Overall as a cohort, which means that would be the final small decrease. But as I said, that's before things increase. So we keep doing the work that we're doing, we keep providing these supports, and we'll see a change. By the way, the 7-year rate of graduation, which is giving students a few more years for GEDs and other things, unchanged. So that shows that we can sustain this work. Next, growth. So growth does not mean in high school how did students do year to year on the ACT, because those are different students. Growth means the same student who took, say, the 3rd grade NSCAS and then a year later took the 4th grade. And so you notice that almost 2/3 of our students grew from year to year, from 3rd grade to 4th grade or 4th grade to 5th grade and so on. That's an improvement also. So we should celebrate and keep seeing that improving. Next, the state wants us to measure the non-proficiency of students. So imagine for a second that half of students were non-proficient in 3rd grade, just imagine. Suppose when all those students get to fourth grade that 40% of them are non-proficient, and each year the amount of proficiency increases. That's what the state wants. So they want this amount of non-proficiency to not be increasing. We don't want more non-proficient students, we want less. And here's some huge news. We used to have, in 21-22, an increasing number of students who are non-proficient. In other words, things were worsening 14 months ago. But as of this year, that same, that same line is going down at a rate of negative 5.9, which is huge. And some schools we have as high as negative 0.7 or even negative 0.8. So there's a lot of improvement happening across the district, which is also reflected by how every school had improvements in NSCAS scores. Lastly, I'll get to science proficiency, and something I want to mention, a year from now when we talk about AQuest, science will be included in the district and the school proficiency. This year it wasn't, they only looked at ELA and math. So the state's written a change that they're going to include science scores. That's good news because as you look at our science proficiency, it's 54.4% as a district. It's going up, but it's very high at some of our schools. And maybe some of our middle schools and our high school stand to work at it the most. But as far as elementary schools, it's rock star high. So that will help us in our AQuest ratings a year from now. And 54% is north of 50. So we're in a good space to improve. So lastly, there are three remaining tenets that I mentioned. The state has plans to continue talking about in AQuest, but I always say coming back soon to a AQuest presentation near you. We don't know if the state will get to those data points or not. They keep telling us they will. With that, I'd like to ask if you have any questions both on the graduation rate and our newcomer students as well as just on AQuest as a whole.
Ms. Juergens.
I just really want to thank you all for the content you presented on tonight. It was not long ago that our school was being totally misrepresented as far as our graduation rate being poor, all of these numbers being represented as our failure. Our student composition is unlike anything in the state of Nebraska, and I so appreciate you putting this on blast. This is pertinent information to who we are and the numbers that have to be included in our graduation rate. So thank you for that, as well as the focus on supporting our newcomer students, seeing how GIPS is stepping up in ways that surrounding schools cannot or will not step up for those students. GIPS is where it's at, and our numbers look a little funny sometimes for that, not to mention the fact that you highlighted post-pandemic rebound. That affected our students and teachers and community members across the board, and I feel like with a longer lens, we are going to continue to see what a catastrophic event that was on our society. Our kids, they're the proof. And to see them rebounding in the way that they are is so encouraging. So thank you for highlighting that this evening.
It's our pleasure.
Mr. Garcia-Mendez.
Thank you. I had a quick question on the, I've talked to Dr. Levos, and she's amazing. Well, is there a reason why we weren't placing newcomer students into their age groups instead of just lumping them into just like the freshman class? He can answer that, yeah.
I think I'd like to let Mr. Wickman speak to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so from what I understand from Dr. Levos, so
yeah.
I'm qualifying this answer, it's my understanding. The thought behind it was thinking about the ACT measure. Mm-hmm. So when you place a kid in that's 17 in the junior year, the concern was that kid has to take the test. Mm-hmm. And so that is a true statement that all of our newcomers that are placing as 11th graders do have to take the test, but there is a grace period, if you will. So it doesn't actually count into our scores. Okay. And so from what I understand, that's kind of the history of it, and it was pretty common practice across school districts across the state. So I think we might be one of the few that are starting to do it as a age-aligned cohort.
Yeah,
So.
which makes sense, which I appreciate. And if Dr. Levos was here, just if you see her, just let her know that I appreciate that, just because it makes sense, you know, instead of just lumping a 20-year-old or 16-year-old into
Our students really
freshman
push
year,
for it.
you
So
know.
it was something that they were really frustrated with coming in at that with a
For sure.
grade level that didn't match their age.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when you are trying to learn a new language at an age, I think it's sometimes people don't realize that, and I encourage people to go to like Stir Museum. They have a My Antonia exhibit right now on the second floor, and it has this really awesome interactive piece where it has different verbs and just different vocabulary out there. I think it's like 50 terms that people who are learning a language, like, that's all they know, and like they have to formulate sentence and interactions based on just what they know. And so I think it really just builds someone's empathy as you kind of like realize what your neighbors, and they are our neighbors. They're here in this very room and in the district. And so I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
We're most welcome to do it. One thing I would add is the grace period that Matt just mentioned. Any student that's put in high school grades has 2 years, well, this is also true for other grades, I should say. Any newcomer has 2 years that they're tested, but that their score doesn't count. Let me clarify. Their score does count. I mean, we want to know what their score is, and we have that so that we can improve. It's provided to us. But the score isn't evaluated if they're in their first or second year of being a newcomer, which they call recently arrived immigrant student. So that being said, for any of our newcomers that come in 10th grade, when they take the ACT, it is counted as participation, in other words, that they came. And that's why participation is really important, and it's an area that we'll work on. But the actual score of it is not counted against them or against the high school or something. It's rather that they want to train kids in just test-taking behavior and give kids 2 years to gain language to a strong enough space that they'd be confident enough taking tests. So thank you for that, Eric.
Ms. Albers.
Thank you for this presentation. I always find this super interesting, and I feel like we're kind of taking the veil off of some of our test scores, and I think a lot of that is attributed to you, Mr. Wickman. Like you seem to like this data. You're like, no. But I always wondered about the newcomer scores, and I had never heard that there was a grace period, and that's something that kind of bothered me, something we've talked about a little bit. So I'm really glad that we're getting that information out there. I just think it's vital to know that that the kids get the opportunity to take it, but yet it doesn't count against our entire score. The other question I had is just to keep me from Googling it is, what is the state average for graduation? The state graduation rate? Does anybody know that off the top of their head? Okay, maybe I will Google it. But I know that I'm guessing that the 90%, or the 89 point whatever that we have from all of the academies it's got to be pushing it.
I'm gonna put my hat on the line here and say that I think it's 84 because I looked at it a couple of days ago.
All right.
But it's in the mid-80s range.
Okay. All right. Wow, that's very interesting and pertinent information tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dahl.
Thank you all.
All right, item number 6.8. Accept and place on file audited financial report as of August 31. Mr. Virgil Harden.
Good evening, everyone, and happy holidays to everyone, I hope. Not to be outdone by Mr. Gerhard, I have a 97-page audit report that we're going to go through in detail on every page until you are all crying. No, we won't do that. That would be mean for you and for myself. So we're gonna let you know that we have what you should expect, and that is a clean audit report. So if you are looking at the attachment, we have a cover and index, and the very first page is the auditor's opinion page. The second paragraph down, I won't read the whole thing, but it starts off with, in our opinion, the financial statements referenced or referred to above present fairly in all respects. So that's what we call a unqualified audit report. And that is indeed what you should always expect of an audit report for Grand Island Public Schools. So I'm going to direct your attention to just a few numbers, I promise. On page 8 of the report, it shows some of the major funds that we run in the district that help us manage the district's resources. And so really, as I look through the report, the thing that really jumps out to me is the ending balances for the different funds. And so as I look at those different funds, they're all listed there. The general fund is the only one that I really feel compelled to continue to talk to you about, both during the budget hearing, budget workshop, and presentations. I've noted that we technically are not at the level of cash reserve or fund balance that we would have as our target, which is really a fourth or third of our cash reserve on hand at any one time. So we should have about $31 million in fund balance, in cash, in the bank, to really be at that level. And so being at 27.8 is just, it is what it is. And so we're currently working on that, as you know. We'll talk more about that shortly. But the rest of the funds are indeed in strong financial shape. And so an example I would share with you is because of the COVID and the federal government putting in additional funds into the lunch fund, for example, where every student during COVID received a meal at free. We were able to build that reserve up. So there's $3 million in that fund. Where in the past, we actually would get letters from NDE if you got over $1 million in that fund, because they say, well, you probably need to rebalance that. So that's just kind of an indicator on some of those other funds we're in great shape. It is really just, at this point, general fund, but then of course, as you all know, it's 90% of everything we do is in the general fund. So I really don't, have any deep insights. We're in strong financial position because we are very diligent in managing our resources. And so the only other thing I would have as a comment is we don't need to approve this, or we don't ever really approve an audit report. We should accept it and place it on file. And we don't need to do that tonight. Really, it's just an introductory thing, and we'll bring it back for action next month. So if you can't sleep and you need something to help you with that, I guarantee you this document will help you. And if you have any questions that come from it, I'll be happy to try to answer them. But rest assured, I would say that we're in strong financial shape. We can always get better, and we watch it dutifully, and I'm proud of the financial report that we have in front of you. So I'd be happy to try to answer any questions if you have them this evening.
Seeing none, thank you. Okay. Item 6.9, authorize Pinnacle Bank accounts. In managing the resources of the district, we're always trying to consider a number of things, which is, of course, maximizing our return, keeping it liquid, and then, of course, trying our best to have that local so it can be reinvested in the Grand Island community. And so in working with local bankers, particularly at Pinnacle Bank, they reached out to us and just offered to establish a relationship with us and talk specifically about an investment account that has some unique features. Right now, all our accounts that are with other financial institutions have to be secured with pledged securities. This particular instrument has the ability to have that taken care of because, in essence, the liability is shared amongst a consortium of banks, and so all the money is FDIC insured. So it's oversimplified, but in essence, we don't have to have pledged securities to collateralize that. It is FDIC insured for the full amount.
And so local bank, local presence, local reinvestment, and then the account is totally liquid. So it's unlike other investments that we do. For example, the bond fund, we do what we call laddered CD investments. So we today wired about $6 million worth of money to pay debt payments for the district for our semi-annual debt payments. Those all came due a couple days ago with CDs that were bought at different times and then tiered to mature all within a couple days. So we maximize our investment. This account will not require me to buy CDs. It'll be invested in liquid all the time. The rate is guaranteed currently at 5.25%, which beats the liquid asset fund where we have a large amount of money. And so right now I'm centering the dialogue in the initial start the relationship slow kind of thing, see how things go. With the activity fund, where we're not necessarily obtaining a very good interest rate currently, that will help us build that. Because that's a fund other than the general fund, we will get to keep that interest income and reinvest it into student programs. If it's in the general fund, as you know, it's an accountable receipt, and for state aid purposes, then we get none of that a year later because they hold it against us, kind of thing, as far as an accountable receipt. That's not the situation with what I'm proposing. So we're going to start off in the activity fund, move some money there, have it totally liquid, and not have to worry about secured deposits or pledged securities. And that will allow the bank then to reinvest in Grand Island community, which hopefully helps our families. And so that's the concept. Again, this is for information only this evening. We can think about it 30 days from now. Want to come back to you and see if you're agreeable and have you authorize myself to enter on behalf of the district into those banking relationships and then invest those funds. With that, I conclude my comments.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Harden. Appreciate it. Okay. Item number 6.10, overview of plan to reduce expenditures for 2024 to 2025.
Usually you say Mr. Harden.
Mr. Harden, sorry.
It's been long enough that my dad passed away, so I actually relate that to myself. So anyhow, so the least favorite thing that anybody here in the room wants to talk about, but unfortunately as your elected officials in the board, you get the unenviable position to deal with the fact that in order to put ourselves in a position to deal with the next fiscal year, and it's important that we understand we're talking about the 24-25 school year, not the current school year. We have unfortunate but nonetheless necessary reductions, and we have shared quite a bit of information, I believe, with both the board and the community about what's driving that. So tonight's comments from me are not really about that. It's really about the items that we intend to bring to you next month again. This is information only. Next month will be action, and it will be a detailed line item by line item next month. This is an overview, we'll say 30,000-foot view of items that you can expect, so you can think about that, ask more questions, go from there, kind of thing. So that's the intent of my comments this evening. I have no attachment. It's all a verbal presentation. So it has been a collaborative process from the district as a whole, from the district leadership team, the central office, directors, building administration, all district administrative levels, and staff members in the classroom have had opportunities to, through normal forms of communication, to present ideas and concepts that should be considered for gaining efficiencies. So the target has been $5 million reduction in expenditures for next fiscal year. As we arbitrarily applied some of those dollars to different areas of the district to try to attack the problem, to kind of, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So to do that, we said, well, we're going to say, we think senior high needs to help us identify about $2 million worth of expenses to reduce. We asked middle school $1 million to reduce. We asked elementary and preschool $500,000, and the balance of $1.5 million from the district office, central office. So that's where we kind of parked the targets, kind of a lesson plan. There's a target. You need to reach those levels of spending reductions. And so we approached it with the thought that the best action would be to have the cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. However, when you are running an organization that sends and spends 80 cents of every dollar on staff, you can't cut that kind of dollars without impacting staff and programming. It is simply not possible. So it will indeed impact staffing and programs. Many decisions are certainly well developed. Many are yet to be finalized. Nothing is final until the Board of Education approves any proposed reductions in next month. You know, there will be fewer staff. If I had to give you an FTE count so you can park it in your brain and think about it as a district as a whole, I think it would be somewhere around 33 FTE from all levels, including administrative, certified, and classified. Items that you can expect to see on the detailed listing would include transportation, reduction in transportation, specifically before, to and from school. Targeted reductions in the IT department. Mr. Gearhart mentioned that he has achieved cost savings. That cost savings sometimes in the past has been used to reinvest in other things, but this year it's to reduce the budget. So his budget would be shrinking by those dollar amounts that he mentioned that he has saved. Targeted reductions in the communication department, targeted reductions in third-party contracts with vendors like Education Advisory Board, possibly our lobbyist. Across-the-board reductions at the building level for elementary, middle school, and senior high at either 2.5% or 5%. The closing and divestment of buildings, including Wyandotte, but not necessarily something that we can achieve in 1 year. It would take numerous years to achieve that and achieve the savings. Other buildings certainly have been considered, but not anything that you should expect to see on the list. I guess in closing, I would say that it's my experience that boards in the past that have had to deal with this have had found it necessary to do what I would call add back or adjustments to what the board or the administration might bring. And so it is certainly a dynamic process, and it's a difficult process, and it takes a lot of iterations and a lot of work and effort to achieve that kind of reduction. To put it in context, it's about 3.5% of our budget that we're trying to reduce. So with that, I would conclude my comments.
Well, Mr. Harden, I'd like to thank you, our administrative team, the district leadership team for all the heavy lifting you've been doing. This has not been an easy task by any means, and we certainly appreciate the diligence that you have shown, and Mr. Fisher and everyone else in the district leadership team to help reduce unnecessary costs. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's certainly been 100% collaborative, so thank you.
Okay, item 6.11.1, policy.
Okay. As my Christmas gift to all, we're only going to cover 2 policies tonight in terms of the new policies that we have here. The first of those being a policy that we are required to update to be in compliance with federal title requirements, and that deals with the parental access to educational practices. And actually, as you scroll through this policy, it's the second part of this policy that actually required the update, and that is 9110.1, which is the Title I parent and family engagement or family member engagement. And they required that we change the title. So actually that's a change right there in that. And then as you scroll through this, pretty simple, straightforward changes. That first paragraph, the strike through there is eliminating the programs that title had fallen under in the past, as far as the Every Child or the No Child Left Behind, and then Every Student Succeeds Act. Those are the two acts that title has fallen under. I think they finally figured out that, well, if you're going to put a policy in place, it shouldn't have to change every time the feds change what they're going to call something. So anyhow, they made that update, and then where we had ones before, we have to put I's in terms of how the title is referenced. That's about it. So pretty simple changes. Nothing real glamorous. Anything there? Any questions on that one? All right, medications in school. This is, again, a pretty simple, straightforward change that we felt like we needed to do. As you look through this medications in school policy and you get down here to the second page, and we're talking about administration of the Narcan nasal spray, basically the anti-opioid medicine that has been available for a number of years. In our policy, it just simply says secondary schools. And we are wanting to have that available in all of our schools, just as an emergency precaution. And so we would propose to strike the secondary there and just make that schools. And then a little further down in here, it talks about for approved policies. And really what we feel like this is a procedure that we're talking about, and not necessarily a policy when you're talking about developing procedures for how you're going to store it and things like that. That isn't really a policy item. That's more how are you going to do it. And then that paragraph below that, we're proposing striking all of that paragraph, as again, it just simply outlines procedures. And again, my belief in policy is that you should always have the minimum that you need to cover what your expectation is, and any details as far as how you're going to administer it really should be considered a procedure and not necessarily be in policy. Because if you change a little bit about how you're going to store it or something along those lines, and you don't go back and you change your policy to match it, then you're out of compliance with your policy. And again, I don't think you ever want to be out of compliance with your policies, so I think you make those policies as simple as possible. Questions on that one? All right. Merry Christmas.
Okay, on to action items. 7.1, calendar adoptions. Dr. Stevens, is she?
Sorry, this is new to me. Do I need to come back? So I'm not sure specifically what I say. Do I say something like, please approve the 24-25 calendar as presented in the information section? Is that what I say?
This time I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the 2025 calendar as presented.
Seconded by Mr. Hawley. Discussion. Seeing none, we may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
All right. Thank you so much.
Please approve the next one. Sorry. Wait.
Wonderful.
That's pretty please.
This-
Any questions, I guess?
I would entertain a motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to name United Private Networks as the winning bidder of the GIPS WAN Transport RFP and authorize Corey Gerhart, CIO, to conduct the necessary negotiations, contract paperwork, and filings to proceed with comply with the federal E-rate programs and rules.
Second by Ms. Malden. Discussion. Seeing none, proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, please approve the next few. I didn't plug this in last time. You guys couldn't see what we were talking about. We'll get right through these. These are all pretty simple, straightforward. Student conduct on buses. This was a piece that we had in front of us the last 2 months. Last month we had inadvertently not made one of the changes that was recommended and we wanted to adopt, and that was down here when we're talking about a second violation, loss of privilege to ride the bus. It did say for 1 week, and we wanted to be clear in saying that that would be for 5 school days as opposed to the 1 week. Otherwise, everything else in there is basically the same. We've spent quite a bit of time on this one. We made some revisions in terms of how those violations shook out. We made sure that we had notification through the principal taking place, and then we restructured a little bit of those rules in terms of, what were transportation rules and what we felt like were more serious infractions. Questions?
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve 5312.1 student conduct on school buses contract as presented.
I'm sorry, I didn't see. Ms. Albers. Seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, may proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, the next policy, authorized use of district vehicles. Not a lot of change here. The one thing we did think that we would change is changing that to pre and post checklist and not necessarily being specific. Again, going back to the idea of that probably being a procedure rather than a policy. Questions?
Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 5441, authorized use of district vehicles as presented.
Second by Mr. Hall. It was faster.
We had the same timing going on.
Okay, the next policy.
Whoops, got to vote. You may proceed to a vote.
Pick it up a little bit.
To approve it?
Motion passes.
All right. Food services management. There were no changes here, so this would simply be approving it as reviewed.
I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 5510 food service management as presented.
Second by Mr. Garcia Mendez. No discussion. May proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, 5521 copyright compliance. One important change in this one, we felt like it was probably appropriate to stripe music audio tapes and just leave that at music as far as being what was copyrighted, not the audio tape, since we rarely see an audio tape anymore. So that's the only change there. Any questions about that one?
I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 5521 copyright compliance as presented.
Second by Ms. Malton. Discussion? None. Proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, 5521, which is an addendum to that copyright compliance. There are no changes to this one because they did not reference audio tapes here.
I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 5521.1 copyright compliance addendum as presented.
Second by Mr. Holly. Discussion? None. Proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
All right, mail and delivery services. We still have mail and delivery services, so there is no need to change this policy. So there is none.
Entertain a motion to accept policy.
Make a motion to approve 5522 mail and delivery services as presented.
Second by Ms. Albers. May proceed to a vote. Motion passes.
Okay, and finally, 5530 insurance management. There were no recommended changes to this one, so again, it just needs to be approved as reviewed. Questions?
We'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 5530 insurance management as presented.
Second by Ms. Malden. No discussion. We proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Fisher? Okay, reports. Item 8.1, Grand Island Public Schools Foundation Report. Ms. Jergens.
The Foundation's online scholarship application went live on December 1st. Students will be able to apply for 160 plus scholarships through this application. The Foundation hosted our scholarship fair on November 29th at the Islander Annex building. The fair included scholarship application presentations from the GIPS Foundation and the Greater Grand Island Community Foundation, as well as booths manned by several colleges, Education Quest, and the academies of Grand Island Senior High. A huge hit was the Islander Boutique, which you heard about earlier. Students were able to find both men and women's suits, ties, shoes, dresses, and anything needed to dress for success. The Foundation Board welcomes 4 new board members: Brandon Boley, Allison Larson, Shirley McCallum, and Valerie Porto. This past year, the Foundation invested $1,418,061 into projects, programs, and scholarships benefiting our students last year. That number breaks down to $141.94 spent per student, and that's of 9,990 students total. And that completes my report.
Thank you. Item 8.2, Student Representative Report, Ms. Adeline Beltran.
Okay, so happy holidays to start off. And so to start off with athletics, for football, last month, seniors Reed Kelly, Justice Hostetler, Caden Robertson, and Jacob Albers were named the All Heartland Athletic Conference football squad. And Justice Hostetler was also named the Independent All Heartland Super Squad 11-man football honorary defensive captain. For volleyball, senior Hayden Hughes was invited to participate in the 40th annual Volleyball All-Star match at Lincoln North Star High School and has accepted to play. And in the Lincoln Journal-Star's 2023 Superstar, Kiera Jones, Jalen Hansen, Hayden Hughes, Jasel Wensloff, and Maya Chrisman were mentioned for honorable mention. And Tia Trout earned the title of First Team Superstar State and Class A First Team All-State. And for Unified Bowling, they honored 9 graduating seniors during the last invite of the season at Westside Lanes, and they were named the Hack Tournament Champions. And they also were runner-ups for the A6 district meet. For girls wrestling, they started off their season strong, and they had their first home meet on November 30th. It was a duel against Minden, and we actually won all matches except one. And for boys wrestling, they had their first home meet on Tuesday, and it was also a duel against North Platte. And both girls and boys wrestling have another home meet tomorrow and Saturday, called the Flatwaters Fracas 2023 at the Heartland Event Center. For powerlifting, they had their first meet at Creighton Prep on December 2nd, and some exciting news: sophomore Hunter Christensen broke the deadlift state and world record for the 13-15 age group, with a deadlift of 635 pounds. Yeah, I have him in my weights class, and he like and he's something. For swimming, the Islanders hosted their first home meet last week, and the boys earned 2 wins over Lincoln Southeast and Lincoln North Star, and then the girls split a win over North Star but fell short to Southeast. As for activities, last month GIPS musicians performed at the Nebraska Music Education Association All-Star Conference in Lincoln. And for instrumental, Audra Rishling, Brennan Clark, Caitlin Sodomoka, Paige Berglund, and Gibran Valls attended. And for choir, Adeline Woods, Armani Edwalt, Braden Stromer, Braylon Bisland, Christian Tennant, and Joseph Heyman attended. And also for musical, auditions for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory were on Monday and Tuesday of this week. And for speech, they kicked off their season and started practicing last month in November, and their team has grown over 30 students from all grades, and they plan to compete in different rhetorical, public addresses, and interpretation events. And they made hundreds in revenue from t-shirt sales, and which is more than they've ever made in recent years. And then midterm graduation was today, and 60 students were able to graduate, 54 walked the stage, and the class officers and I were there to hand out programs and support our early grads. And then kind of some, I guess, like what I've noticed at school and what others have mentioned to me with all the new, I guess, like updates that will be coming soon. Like the atmosphere at school has been really tense because of the academy and pathway revamp and the phone policy. For the academy and pathway revamp, we learned that the Academy of Education Law and Public Safety will be getting eliminated, and many pathways like agribusiness, aviation, counseling, and mental health, they're just getting rid of it. And it's made lots of students lose hope and interest in something that they really wanted to pursue in the future. And we feel like the academies and pathways at GISH are really something that like GISH has identified itself with, and it's kind of been really confusing to us. So, and like we understand that the sophomores and juniors who are in academies and pathways that are being eliminated next fall, like they'll have the opportunity to choose a new pathway, and or like the juniors, when they're senior, they can choose a capstone course, but it's still really difficult. Like I know it won't affect me, but like it's still really difficult to see, to see my academy leave because I'm in the law academy. So and like it even, like a couple of students were here earlier to express their feelings, and just goes to show that they're really, they're kind of stressed out about it because we were given information, but not like a lot as to why. Like we understand the budget cuts, but we don't understand why like our specific academies are being eliminated. And then for the phone policy, that's become like the talk of school right now, and many students are like displeased with the policy that would be put in place next semester. I take mostly like AP classes and stuff, so usually like I don't really use my phone anyways, but some people just felt like it was very extensive to eliminate it, like eliminate the usage of phones like in the hallways, bathrooms, during lunch, during open blocks. So I just thought I'd bring that up. And with that, I conclude my report, and I wish you all a happy holiday season.
Thank you. Okay, item 8.3, superintendent report.
Well, Eddie covered most of the things I had on my report. I would pick up just a little bit off of what she shared in terms of the students and where they're at. And I think that we're all very understanding of the disappointment and the challenge when something that you have had in place goes away. And I do think that the high school administration is really working hard, and they haven't had a lot of time yet to really have conversations with students to really reassure them of where we're at. And I do think that within the plan, although pathways have been eliminated and we did roll down one academy, I think most of the opportunities that our students have had are still going to be there. And I think in the end, that was something that the high school administrators worked really hard to try and ensure that happened, was to keep the opportunities, to streamline by reducing the number of pathways and eliminating one academy. They can bring more of our students into our core classes and be more efficient in terms of what we're doing there, and at the same time still have psychology, still have welding, still have public law offerings, and have them available as electives. And so, we've had conversations with Central Community College about continuing all of the pieces that we've been doing with them and being able to offer those opportunities still. So I really do think that once we get through the initial, reeling of, wow, we're cutting our number of pathways and the number of academies down, I think that we'll find out that most of the opportunities, certainly all of the work experiences, a lot of the things that the students that shared concerns about earlier, I think are still going to exist. They'll just be rolled into the pathways that we have. So hopefully that's where we end in that area. Otherwise, like I said, most of the things that Addie talked about were the same things I had. I've been to lots of concerts in the last few weeks, and it's great to see students at different levels. When you really want to see what education looks like, you watch sixth grade band students become seventh and eighth grade band students, and you can really see growth. And just really all the way as you look at the kindergartners that are on stage singing and where they are by the time they're third or fourth graders, and then when they're in the middle school, and then you see the great things that our high school music department does. A lot of really great things there. sports programs. Had the opportunity to get to at least some of all the different winter sports so far, and that's always good to see kids in those arenas as well. And we had the presentation by our Families in Transition. You know, I had the chance. It's not one of the Families in Transition things. It's just a Howard School thing. But went over and wrapped presents for students. The students come and they pick out gifts that they're going to give to two people in their family. And, you know, it was just really neat. I think the things that our different schools and our district does for our students and their families, you know, is really, really impressive. Had the chance to go to the Chamber Legislative Kickoff yesterday morning. Several of you were there, so you got to hear the governor speak and hear some of the local senators. So obviously that's a kickoff to the legislative season that we'll get to deal with after the first of the year. We also have coming up meetings with both Senator Lippincott and Senator Aguilar next Tuesday, and we've advertised those as special board meetings so we can have as many board members as are available to come and meet with those gentlemen. And then, you know, again, I just wanted to mention the midterm graduation. A neat ceremony today. Having 60 students that graduated midterm. A lot of those students are students that probably wouldn't be graduating in other places. There's some of those students that took a little extra time. I mean, some of them, you know, maybe students who got through in a shorter amount of time, but there's also those that had to have, you know, there's usually reasons why students are graduating midterm. Either they've got a need to be out working and doing something different, or they've had their struggles and this is when they're getting done. But whatever their path, it's certainly a great opportunity to celebrate success of the students and really success of the district in getting them to that point. So with that, I will conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Okay. Item number 9, executive session for the purpose of negotiations, because it is in the best interest of the public to discuss this matter in closed session. At this point in time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session.
I'd like to make a recommendation for the board convene to an executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations.
Second by Mr. Hawley. Discussion, seeing none. Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to reconvene from executive session.
I'd like to make a motion that recommend that the board reconvene from an executive session.
Second by Mr. Holly. Discussions? None. We proceed to a vote. All right. Motion passes. The official time is now 8:19. We are back in session. Okay. Let's see, I believe he said the information was supposed to be in here, correct? What's that? Master agreement. Right, I clicked on it and. Yeah. Yeah, it's not. I'm not seeing it in there.
Try refreshing your screen at the upper left, round arrow at the home.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, shoot. How do I get that
Double
back?
click.
What's that?
Double click on it. It'll pop up.
Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the 2024-25 master agreement.
Make a recommendation to approve 2024-2025 master agreement with the Grand Island Education Association as ratified by the membership of the GIEA.
Second by Ms. Malden. Discussion. Seeing none, we may proceed to a vote. Motion passes. Okay, notification of upcoming board meetings. We have a special Board of Education meeting Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. Two of them, one at 11:30 and one at 1:30 p.m.